Welcome back to the Sully Scoop, where three lifelong Husker Bros dive in depth on all surrounding the new era of Husker football, where our cups never run dry of the Roulade under head coach Matt Rule. Made by fans for fans with J-Saul, B-Saul, and T-Saul. The Sully Scoop is the official Nebraska Cornhusker football podcast brought to you by Big Banter. We are back on your favorite Cornhusker podcast. That's the Sully Scoop. You're here with J-Saul, B-Saul, and T-Saul. And finally, the 2023 college football season has officially come to an end. And guess what? We're already off-season national champs, and it feels great.
Hey, it's a long off season there, Jay, so it's a little early to hang the banner. But let me tell you, I think we're in a great position to hang that off-season national championship banner again for the at least 10th year in a row here. The only thing that might come down to give us a run for our money here is with the news out of Tuscaloosa with Nick Saban retiring. It's really gonna, put everything for Alabama on the chopping block here. Unless they make a good hire here to keep some of those recruits, it gives everybody an opportunity here to really close the gap between us and that championship.
Yeah, and honestly, like Nick Saban, he didn't do Alabama any favors because, I feel like just how long he's been there, everything he accomplished, he should have had a successor picked out. He should have said, "This guy's taking my place. So when I step down, Alabama, you're in good hands." Because now I feel like those players, it's going to be a free for all. They're going to all jump in the transfer portal and going to be shooting all over the country.
You bring up a good point, but is that kind of a saying that Nick Saban didn't choose to leave? It was Alabama choosing Nick Saban to leave. Because at this point, honestly, Georgia has passed Alabama. Alabama got lucky in the SEC championship game to take out Georgia. But for the past, 3 years, Georgia has been the top dog and surpassed Nick Saban himself and the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Yeah,
Jason,
Kirby Smart's been a hell of a coach since going to Georgia there, Jason. I agree with you. However, until Kirby puts on, again, back-to-back championships is huge, but until Kirby puts out the level of work and consistency that Nick was doing year in and year out for the better half of the last decade, or last 2 decades, really, it's going to be tough to say that he's a better coach than Nick Saban.
Nick Saban never won back-to-back championships.
Yes, he did. He definitely did. I think he did it twice. And
he did it once, 2009, 2010, when he first got into the league. He never did it again.
I thought he did it twice. I could have sworn.
But and that was well over a decade ago. I mean, Nick Saban, he was on his way out. This guy hasn't been at the top in the SEC for a few seasons now. And, there's a new dog in town, and it's the Georgia Bulldogs.
Georgia Bulldogs are done, Jason. They're not going to win the SEC.
All right, who's gonna overrun them in the SEC next year?
Ole Miss. I bet you it's Ole Miss against LSU, and maybe Alabama sticks around. Georgia's done what Georgia did, like what Kirby Smart did for 2 years was great, but ultimately they benefited from the COVID BS. Everyone got an extra year of eligibility, so then they had their quarterback jog out who was 40 years old, and they benefited from a lot of guys getting that extra year and sticking around.
Their quarterback wasn't the reason they won the national. Their quarterback wasn't the reason they were winning national championships. It was their defense.
I'm telling you, without that extra COVID year of eligibility, Georgia probably wouldn't have been as dominant as they were. They are the ones who benefited the most. That's what I'm telling you, Jason.
Now,
we are still seeing that today.
You bring up a good point here because he's talking that Ole Miss is going to stay on par here and be one of the top program. Well, that's an interesting point because right now, Lane Kiffin's one of the top names in line to replace Nick Saban at Alabama.
He ain't going anywhere, trust me. Ole Miss is going to dump the money bucket on him.
Lane Kiffin was on his way out last year. He was rumored to be going everywhere.
Why would Lane Kiffin want to go to Alabama? That wouldn't make any sense. He'd just be a Nick Saban shadow forever. Everyone would say everything he does at Alabama, he didn't do himself. Nick Saban set him up for success. Even though he has Ole Miss to back up and say, look,
Lane Kiffin comes back down.
program.
No, he comes back in as one of the Alabama old assistant coaches that's huge that has an opportunity there. However, I don't think it's going to be Lane Kiffin. And I'll go on record here on what is today, January 10th, the day Nick Saban retired. And I will tell you right now, the next head coach at Alabama is going to be Dabo Swinney, old Alabama football player. The feelings at Clemson right now, he built that program up, he put them on the map. And I can tell you right now, that relationship is tenuous, it's strained, it's not a healthy relationship. And Dabo Swinney to replace Nick Saban has always been the plan. And so it would not surprise me if you hear in the next couple of weeks that Dabo Swinney is going to be the next head coach at Alabama.
See, that is just a false accusation. Dabo Swinney is not going to be leaving Clemson. The people higher up at Clemson are not going to let Dabo Swinney walk away because they know what they were before Dabo got there. And they were nothing. They were a bottom feeder. And, you know, it has stuck around. Dabo Swinney finally got the program up, and that's expectation now. So the fans that are around the atmosphere of Clemson, the fans of Clemson and themselves, yes, they're upset, but guess what? They were nothing before Dabo got there. They're going to throw the money at Dabo to keep him there. Now, there is a coach out there that is going to be taking that job, and it's a coach that's at a spot where he was not going there to stay for a long time. He is a coach that has already jumped ship before, and he is a coach that is going to bring the hype, bring some recruits, and he is going to try to bring Alabama back, and that is Coach Prime, Deion Sanders out of Colorado. He will be leaving. If you think Deion likes it up there in Colorado, you're crazy. He doesn't like the cold. He's already said that. He is going to be bringing his sons, his entire offense, except for the offensive line, to Alabama.
His sons aren't good enough to play at Alabama right now.
Exactly.
Doesn't mean anything.
The bench. They'd be riding the bench.
They would not when Deion's the coach. Deion is going to play his sons regardless of how good they are.
If Deion went to Alabama, he'd be handcuffed. They'd handcuff him, and his coaching style wouldn't work at Alabama.
Why are we even entertaining this? Deion Sanders is not a name to watch out for this Alabama job. There are a number of coaches that have an opportunity here. In fact, I would say there's probably 25 that are in front of Deion Sanders taking the Alabama job. Deion Sanders stands a better chance at replacing whatever coach leaves to take that job at Alabama, unless it is an NFL assistant head coach who's going to step down and come back to a program that they have familiarity with. But Deion Sanders will not be the next head coach at Alabama. You heard it here first.
Why are they releasing, stat lines on Deion Sanders going there?
He ain't
if he's not in contention,
because ESPN has a love fest with Prime.
Exactly, and Alabama wants to get back on top, and guess what the SEC is? The SEC is bought by ESPN. ESPN owns the SEC.
It doesn't matter. I'm telling you right now, J-Cell, Deion Sanders has 0% chance at being the next head coach of Alabama.
It doesn't even matter what he does.
Zero.
Deion brings the hype. ESPN would not get off of him the entire season. This team would lose, and they were still showing highlights. Like this was like we'd never even seen a football play before because Deion Sanders was there. Guess what? He is going to be there at Alabama. Deion Sanders is going to be joining the SEC.
That's the reason that ESPN has lost all credibility because they're also calling for this terrible Colorado team next year to be in the 12-team playoff. That's a joke. Deion Sanders leaving Colorado to go to Alabama is a joke. I can tell you right now, he's not going there, and you don't even need to entertain it. You can listen to ESPN. It doesn't matter.
College football. ESPN can put in whoever they want in the CFP. ESPN owns the College Football Playoff Committee. ESPN owns as the SEC. Guess what? They could do whatever they want.
Paul Feinbaum. I'm gonna need you to chill.
They could do whatever they want.
I'm gonna need you to chill. Listen, it doesn't matter that your boss can do what they want.
Hey, Stephen A.
ESPN
quiet
has
down
the money.
over there.
ESPN has the money, and they run the SEC. They run college football. They run the College Football Playoff Committee. And guess what? They are all over Deion, and that is why it is a good fit for Deion at Alabama. It is because the SEC is already owned by ESPN.
I'm telling you right now, the top name is Dabo Swinney. Then you've got Lane Kiffin. Then you've got Dan Lanning, who I don't see leaving Oregon, but he's probably up there as an old Alabama assistant coach. You got Kalen DeBoer from Washington. Washington's going to lose most of their team this year to the draft, so why would he not take an opportunity to make that next jump? You've got a ton of teams out there. Why would Steve Sarkisian, if they called him, why would he not leave Texas and go to Alabama? You would go to a team that actually knows how to recruit and play in the SEC, where he coached the offense for years, rather than be with a Texas team that's going to come in and probably win a total of 3 games next year playing in the SEC.
Guess what?
Okay, a
Caleb
couple of
DeBoer
things
is
here,
not going to be
Bissell.
leaving Washington. That is
couple
the
of things.
closest Washington has ever gotten to a national championship game and gotten to winning a national championship.
It won't happen
They
again
are
there,
going to be
J-Saul.
throwing.
And listen here, Bissell.
They are
Deion
going to be
has no
throwing all
reason.
the money they have.
Deion
in it.
has no reason to leave Colorado. Colorado lets him pick the uniforms. They let him pick whatever he wants. He's got the whole world.
What are you saying? I've told you Deion Sanders is not leaving. He's got a 0% chance.
That's outrageous.
So why are you arguing with me about it?
Why are you saying Deion is going to leave Colorado?
I haven't said Deion's leaving Colorado. I told you Deion Sanders will not be the head coach at Alabama.
Well,
he's got a better
not
chance
leaving for Alabama. Why would Dabo look? Whoever becomes the next Alabama coach is Nick Saban's shadow.
What you both don't understand. It doesn't matter.
He didn't even throw
Nick Saban was in Bear Bryant's shadow, and you want to know what he did? He went on to be one of the best head coaches out there. What Dabo Swinney looks at is if he goes to Alabama, he gets to coach at his alma mater, which is something that a lot of these coaches want to do in their lifetime. It's something that they always look for. You always hear about these guys, oh man, my dream job is to go back and coach where I played. Go back where I have all these memories. That's what Dabo has. And I can tell you right now, the disrespect from the Clemson fan base this past 2 years on this Clemson football team, where they basically told Dabo, listen, you suck. He still won 9 games. The guy has brought national championships. The guy has been winning 10 plus games a year. It's ridiculous that they are treating him this badly. And I guarantee you, if Alabama calls, Dabo Swinney's picking up the phone and he's going to say, here are my demands for me to be your next head coach. And they're going to do it.
Well, Bissell, I gotta tell you something. I gotta tell Dabo something here. If he thinks Clemson fans are tough, try with Alabama fans. They're used to being in the college football playoff and playing for national titles. Okay. And their fans are used to leaving at halftime because they're blowing out whoever they're playing by too many points. So if all of a sudden you're playing a close game or losing somebody,
I can tell you right now
they're not sticking
that it is
around.
a heck of a lot easier to recruit at Alabama than it is at Clemson. And I can tell you also that Dabo Swinney going to Alabama won't ruin his career, won't do any of that. He will finish his career as the Alabama head coach, and then he'll retire when he's done.
I don't think so. I think
disagree.
the most likely guy who would jump ship is Lincoln Riley, because USC is pathetic. He knows that they're screwed as soon as they join the Big Ten. He's likely jumping ship, but
Lincoln Riley's not going to leave to go there. Lincoln Riley's probably going to end up coaching at like Arizona, who's going back to the Big 12. He wants to play people who have no competition. That's why he left Oklahoma. He didn't want to go to the SEC. He's going to bail at USC because he doesn't want to go to the Big 10. He's not going to take over a program that's already in one of those premier conferences.
Totally agree. He's not that great of a
coach. Totally agree. You just said he was going to be a realistic candidate for the Alabama job.
I didn't say he was a realistic candidate. I said he would bail with the opportunity. He would bail for any opportunity.
Okay, but still, you just went back on what you said right there. Either way, right? You 100% went back. Yes,
I said he's leaving USC. He's going somewhere. He ain't sticking around at USC to join.
So going to the SEC of Alabama was the option when you just said he doesn't want to play anybody?
Well, I'll tell you this, J-Saul. If you're in the SEC, if you drop games to Arkansas and Ole Miss and whoever else, people make excuses. Well, that's the SEC, that's tough. But if you go to the Big Ten, you start dropping games to Northwestern and Purdue, dude, you're the butt of everybody's jokes.
A la Mike Riley.
Exactly. So you think Lincoln Riley wants that? Hell no.
You don't
be in the SEC than the Big Ten.
Bissell's out here. He thinks Deion's at the place for his life. He thinks he's staying at Colorado for a lifetime.
I never said that.
Bissell thinks
he's not staying at Colorado.
Home.
He will be at Colorado for the next couple of years, and as soon as his kids jump to the NFL, Deion Sanders will be following them to the NFL. Deion Sanders will be coaching professionally because of his name, not because of his record, not because of how he is as a head coach. I think people forget that he is just one of those polarizing figures that people gravitate towards, which is why he will be back in the NFL. What a name that people aren't looking at and probably aren't registering as somebody who's built themselves up, Trent Dilfer, who stepped away from ESPN to go coach at the high school level, quietly has become a successful college head coach the last couple of years, and he's coaching at UAB, I believe, is where he's at right now. But he's having South Alabama, sorry. But he's having a great year. He just brought in some huge recruits, and chances are Trent Dilfer next year will be on the coaching circuit and be taking over a top tier job because A, he was a professional quarterback, and B, he's won at each level that he's gone to start his coaching career.
Well, he wouldn't be the first guy that we saw, winning games at a level that nobody cares about. I mean,
his first
you
year
tried
coaching, I
making
think
the
he won a high school state championship his first year as a
Ooh.
head coach.
Oh yeah, high school
And
championship. He's going to be talking about that for the rest of his life.
You know what B-Cell's going to be talking about for the rest of his life? The miss he's putting on this Alabama head coaching job. And that is Deion making it there. The ESPN themselves, the ESPN executives, the ESPN College Football Playoff Committee owns everything. They want to see Alabama get to the top. They want to see Alabama have the hype again. And who has the hype all around them? That's Deion. That's Deion, baby. He's on his way to Alabama as we speak, going to take a job offer.
Well, B-Cell had something right when he was talking about Deion. He said that he's not going to go anywhere without his kids, and he's not going to go to Alabama where his kids just aren't going to play. I mean, you're talking about all the best, some like top talent recruits. So, yeah, Shadir might be able to start as your quarterback, but his other son won't be your starting safety. I mean, the guy's going to have to sit for 3 years.
That tells me he's not that great, as you didn't even know his other son's name.
Can't remember, man.
Shiloh.
Yeah, Shiloh Sanders.
Won't be playing at Alabama.
Doesn't matter. Guess what?
Shadir.
Guess what? He would put, if he gets the job offer, that's part of his, requirements. Like, hey, my kids are playing. I don't really care. And guess what? You could put in Shiloh on that team because all the guys around him are the top of the top. I mean, the cream of the crop. I mean, you could put in a Shiloh to fill in.
If they stay. And if it comes out that, hey, Alabama's seriously inquiring about Deion, you're going to be seeing Nick Saban unretiring because he's not going to let that happen. He's not going to let everything he built
where I disagree.
Get ruined overnight.
And here is where I bring up the conspiracy theory that this has been in the works for a year now, for more than a year. Since Deion got to Colorado, this has been in the works. Why? Because the hype started with ESPN. Everything was drafted towards Deion Sanders. And what's the first thing he goes out and does? He goes out and he gets a deal with Aflac and goes and makes a commercial with Nick Saban himself. And they signed a dotted line saying he would be his successor.
See, the one thing here, J-Cell, is Deion Sanders was in the Aflac commercials before he was a coach of Colorado.
But not with Nick Saban, he wasn't.
It's all the same company there. It has nothing to do with that.
It's not the same company.
Because
guess what? The company wasn't with him. The company wasn't with him yet because Nick Saban wasn't there. The company was brought in when Deion made it to the Division I level. Power 5 football, and that is what everyone came to see.
The B-Cell guarantee is that Deion Sanders will not be coaching at Alabama next year.
It's going to be PJ Fleck.
No, PJ Fleck will be coaching a terrible Minnesota team again.
I wouldn't bank on that, but you know what? We got to talk about the game.
Well, you also thought he was going to get fired before the end of the season, and lo and behold, somebody still has their job.
End of the season's April. There's still time to fire that boy. But we got to talk about the game that just happened. That's Michigan-Washington, a game really that wasn't worth watching because we kind of all knew the outcome. And ultimately, I'm not happy that Michigan won. I mean, it just proves that you can cheat, you can exploit the rules and, nothing happens. And then 3 years from now, maybe they'll come and say, oh, you know what? We're going to take away 4 scholarships from Michigan. That'll really teach them. No, you know what? All that taught me is I'm going to start taking everyone's signs. I'm going to start doing stuff with recruits before they're even in the transfer portal. I'm going to win a championship, and we'll talk about it for the rest of my life.
Yes, I don't understand why, this just, first of all, this ruined college football earlier in the year when the College Football Playoff Committee did not give a deserving team in Florida State the opportunity to go and defend their undefeated season, which was flat out disrespectful. And it changed the college football college football landscape. It's now a power two. So that was a drastic blow to college football. And it took away a power five and what everything used to be. Guess what? That's no more. It's a power two. Now the NCAA president just comes out and says everything Michigan did was legitimate because the last month of the season, they did not steal signs. They did not have any of this going. How do we know that? How do we know that? Because you guys opened an investigation and everyone knew that they were stealing signs, so they were supposed to go change up their sign? No, listen, they were already videoing and stealing signs from the beginning of the year. If you don't think they were sitting in with all these teams that you don't think they were at Alabama games at the beginning of the year, you're insane. You don't think they were at Georgia games, you're crazy. I mean, they were at all of the top schools from the beginning of the year stealing signs, and now you just came out and said everything is legitimate because the last month of the season they didn't steal signs. What does that even mean? That means every game before that doesn't matter. That means every game you win at the beginning of the season doesn't matter. That means you should be cheating. Nobody cares if you cheat. There's no credibility to college football anymore. If you aren't cheating, don't expect to win because guess what? Everyone else is going to be cheating. You're going to open up your checkbooks. This is the NIL of college football. Open up your checkbooks. Go over to other college schools. I'm walking through locker rooms at this point. I mean, what are you going to do? Oh, you're going to open an investigation? Sick. I was there. Take my picture. You think I care? I'll take the 4-game suspension while I got the top guys coming because I just opened my checkbook. We got Warren Buffett on the phone. I mean, the Huskers should hire me because I would be in every team's
for a
locker
minute
room.
here. Why don't you get off your soapbox and listen? I'm just going to ask you a quick question here, okay? Just hear me out. It's a very simple question.
Then to get to it.
Did TCU deserve to be in the national championship the year before?
Yes.
You believe that TCU was the same caliber team as everybody else in the college football playoffs and deserved to be there, correct?
They beat Michigan.
They beat Michigan because they had a month to prepare. They were not as talented a team, but that's fine.
Did they beat Michigan? Did they beat Michigan?
They beat Michigan, yes.
So you're telling me, you're coming right here. What, did you just come right here and tell me TCU was not the caliber of teams in the college football playoff to be there and to even compete? They made it to the national championship. They literally beat a team in the playoff.
They had a month to prepare. They had a month to prepare.
So Michigan found out the day before that they were playing them?
Nope. I'm telling you right now that when they had a week. My argument is simple. That if Georgia was let in the college football playoffs like they should have been, Georgia would have won the national championship for the 3rd year in a row. This Georgia team was the best team in college football, and it's a damn shame that they were left out.
Alabama said otherwise. So you're telling me because Michigan lost last year that they should have still been in the national championship game?
No, I didn't say that. I'm simply asking you if you thought TCU was the 2nd best team in the country last year.
They made it there, and guess what? They won.
That's not an answer.
So was Michigan deserving to be there?
No.
Was
it is yes or no. Yes or no.
Was Michigan deserving to be there?
I think Michigan was a top 4 team.
And TCU beat them, so TCU's win means nothing. TCU's win means nothing.
I'm asking you a question.
I'm asking you.
You never even answered my question.
I said yes.
So you think they were the 2nd best team in the country?
Yes. They beat Michigan. If you're coming down to 4 teams and they beat Michigan, who you said was caliber to be there, does that win not mean anything? Oh, they had a month to prepare. Yep, Michigan just found out a week ago they're playing. Like,
nobody said that Michigan found out a week ago.
What argument is that? What even argument is that? They literally beat them. They had the same amount of time to prepare. And you're going to say because they had a month to prepare, that's the only reason they won? They had the same amount of time. Did they or did they not have the same amount of time?
They did.
Jay, so Jim Harbaugh isn't that great of a coach, and the only way he can win it all is by cheating. Clearly, we learned that this year because the other
And guess what?
other 2 years he couldn't win a playoff game.
And
so
guess
we
what?
learned Jim Harbaugh is nothing. He's going to go to the NFL, fail again, and then try to claw his way back to Michigan or some sorts.
The only reason that they didn't beat TCU is because they weren't out there scouting TCU. Nobody thought TCU belonged there. And guess what? Michigan would have beaten an Alabama last year. Michigan would have beaten anybody else in that game, but they weren't prepared for TCU because they weren't out scouting them. Michigan is full of cheaters, and Michigan's national championship is going to get forfeited and going to be sitting next to Reggie Bush's Heisman.
That's fine. I'm telling you right now that the reason you can get off your soapbox about Florida State is the fact that the committee was not going to make a mistake again of putting a team in like TCU. TCU last year.
Washington just got blown out at the end of the game.
But it was a game until the fourth quarter. The TCU Georgia game wasn't a game. Just like the Georgia Florida State game wasn't a game.
TCU beat Michigan.
What did they do in the championship?
Do you see this picture?
If Michigan was in the championship,
a photo after the win. A photo after the win.
At the end of the 2022 season, when they were doing the selection show, and it came down to they were talking about it because Alabama was not in the SEC championship game, and everybody was trying to figure out. It's not. Because
why even play games then? Why even play games?
Lost the championship.
Hand pick them. Georgia won because I picked them. What kind of argument is that?
I'm telling you, TCU lost their championship game and was put in over Alabama because they still got to play the championship game. TCU then went on to get embarrassed in the national championship. They got embarrassed.
What did they do before?
65-7.
What did they do before?
Just hear me out.
No, hear me out. What did Michigan do the year before against Georgia? What did Michigan do the year before against Georgia?
Your argument is that Florida State should have gotten in. Florida State played the same Georgia team, and I would argue a less talented Georgia team than TCU, and got blown out 63-3.
That is not the Florida State team that played the entire season.
That's my point. That's why they got left out.
The entire team opted out. If you think Florida State's backups match up against Georgia's backups, you're crazy. Because guess what? That only happened in the second half because all of Georgia's starters played in the first half and they went up against Florida State's backups. And guess what? Georgia has had the top recruiting class for the past 3 years. So no, their backups at Florida State are not going to match up against the backups at Georgia. And I can guarantee you one thing. Their backups at Florida State aren't going to match up against the starters at Georgia. And I don't blame Florida State starters for opting out of the game. Guess what? You took away the opportunity to go for a perfect season and go for a national championship. Why would I play? Guess what? I'm going to the NFL, to a place that it respects wins, a place that respects what you do during the season, a place that respects a winning percentage.
I can guarantee you
ESPN
right now,
college football
if this was a
because they don't respect it.
Playoff, Georgia would have won it all.
You know what? Northwestern would have won it all. Because why not? Because I picked them. This is an outrageous take.
I'm telling you, it's
outrageous take.
This Georgia team was one of the top 4 teams that should have been in the playoffs. And to say otherwise is just
so would
erroneous.
Michigan have beat them? They would have beat Michigan.
They would have beat Michigan. I gotta ask you something.
Michigan beat Alabama, and Alabama beat Georgia literally right before that.
Okay. And so Texas beat Alabama. So therefore, Washington would have beaten Alabama, even though that would have been a harder matchup for Washington.
I do think Washington would have beaten Alabama.
So you think Texas would have beaten Georgia?
Yes, that's what it tells me.
You think Washington would have beaten Georgia?
Yes, that's what it tells me.
Okay. So you're
I think
moron.
Michigan would have beat Georgia.
Nope, because it's Georgia. It's Georgia. And B-Cell's out here just picking Georgia. Georgia literally lost to Alabama, dude. They literally lost.
A championship game. A game that not everybody plays that week.
LOSS. And first of all, every team in the college football playoff did play that week. And every team that was in the playoff won that week.
Okay, but who had that hard of a game? I mean, who else played a team caliber of Alabama? Nobody. Michigan played Iowa. That's a joke. Washington, I remember who they played.
They played Oregon. They played a tough game.
Oregon, they would have got smoked by Georgia and Alabama. And Texas, who did they play again? They played somebody terrible out of the
Oklahoma
Big 12.
State.
Yeah, exactly. Oklahoma State got smacked around by like Houston or something like that. It's a joke.
How about you get off the ESPN SEC bias, to get off the committee's bias, and hop into the real world?
I'm not
hop into the real world.
I'm telling you.
This is a world where wins matter. And that is why Florida State players are going to the NFL, because in college football, it no longer matters if you win. It no longer matters what you did earlier in the season. It doesn't matter if you cheated the entire season, but the last month of the season you didn't. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you lost at the beginning of the year or didn't lose at the beginning of the year. All it matters is who's paying the big bucks, who's in the SEC, who's owned by ESPN. Because why? ESPN has their hand in the pot of the college football playoff.
So again, you just said wins don't matter and blah, blah, blah. So apparently team health doesn't matter, because if Jordan Travis was healthy, Florida State would have been in, because they would have won by more points on championship weekend. They had a cakewalk of a game compared to everybody else.
So when Tom Brady led the Patriots to his first Super Bowl, was he or was he not a backup quarterback to start the year?
I believe the year they won the Super Bowl under him, the first time he was a starter.
It
was after he took them to the play. No, he took them to the playoffs the year before.
He became a starter. Is this the first time? What happened with Cardale Jones, huh? That was a third string quarterback. Third string, not even first string, not even second string, third string quarterback at Ohio State. And what did they do? They won the Big Ten championship. They won the semifinal college football playoff game. They won the national championship. And guess what? They won 3 big games with their third string starter, but you're out here telling me that your quarterback is the entire team.
No, I'm still telling you that Georgia was a top team that should have been in, and Georgia embarrassed Florida State, which
they didn't embarrass the Florida State that went undefeated. They didn't embarrass that team. They did.
I'm sorry.
They did.
I'm sorry. Was T-Saw, can you help me out, because he's clearly blinded? Was that Florida State team undefeated going into a Georgia bowl game matchup?
Sure were.
How many players in that game played at any point during the season? At any point during the season.
How were they not the undefeated Florida State team that Georgia was playing?
Let's just crown Georgia national champs. 2024 national champs, Georgia.
I thought you said wins matter. They were 13-0. They were 13-0 playing Georgia. But you just said it's not a team that was undefeated.
It wasn't.
They didn't have a loss. Didn't you just tell me that wins matter? So you're discrediting everybody who was on that team going into Georgia.
How many starters? How many starters were on the field? How many starters were on the field?
Hold on.
How many starters were on the field? I'm not getting
11 starters on both teams.
Nope. How many starters started for Florida State? How many starters started for Florida State that started at any point during the season for Florida State? At any point. At one point during the regular season, how many people that started in that bowl game had played and started during the season? So I can give you. It's a big fat about putting up the Oregon. Guess
there
what?
Were plenty of players on both sides.
Georgia can go flip their patties over that win because they beat a team that was complete backups. Congrats. That's not the same team. And that's not the team that went undefeated. That's not the team that won the ACC championship. That's not the team that, beat a ranked number 11 Louisville in the championship. That's not a team that beat Florida on the road.
Whose problem is that? Whose problem is that? That's Florida State's problem.
Nope. That's their
ESPN problem.
That's ESPN's problem. That's ESPN's.
Why is that ESPN's problem?
Because
they didn't jog out there and get smacked around by Georgia.
They made the decision to not put in an undefeated. Guess what? Florida State is not going to be the only one going forward that, if they are undefeated or at the same level, have the same, have better stats than an SEC team. Guess what? The SEC team's getting in all day.
They should. The SEC is way better competition than the ACC, and you're completely biased against the SEC if you disagree with that statement.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying Florida State deserved to be in to
You
go
just-
for a.
no, you
You're
just
not going to
said that.
leave out the SEC of the
No.
playoff, just like you're not going to leave out the Big Ten. So you may
That
as
is
well
not
harp
true.
that the
That is not
ACC
true.
is better
Going
than the
forward-
Big 12 because that's your only
go-
argument.
An undefeated Power 5 champ is.
I don't care. I don't care.
And this
It's
is
not a
why.
tough schedule. Schedule means
Is-
more than your record.
How much is ESPN paying you?
You know what? The next time Hawaii goes undefeated, let's throw them in the playoff. Why not?
Hawaii plays in the Mountain West. That is not a Power 5.
There's no such thing as a Power 5 there.
There
Jay.
is.
So
That's-
I would argue that's just as
You-
difficult as the ACC.
Do they or do they not call it a Power 5 champion
Not me.
when you win your
I don't.
conference?
I
Do
don't.
they? They is vague. They
Who's
doesn't
they?
mean you.
ESPN, your lover overlords?
No, it means college football analysts.
No, they don't call it the Power 5.
Do you watch TV?
Let me ask you a question here, Jay. So you're
You're
super
already
juggernaut.
lying.
You're super
already lying.
juggernaut.
You're already lying.
Cowboys.
You're already
You're super
caught.
juggernaut
You're caught.
Cowboys from the state of Oklahoma. Okay.
You're caught. You're
if they're
caught.
so
You're
tough,
caught. You're a liar.
is going
liar.
to double
liar.
overtime against BYU considered a good win?
You're a liar.
BYU, mind you, went 5-7. So going to double overtime against them makes the Cowboys of Oklahoma pretty solid, doesn't it there, Jason?
I don't understand why that's even coming up into this
Because
conversation right now.
you're saying that Texas played a tough team like Georgia did with Alabama.
When
because they
when
had to
did
play
I say that?
and beat
When did
Oklahoma
I
State.
say that? When did I
So,
say that? When did I say that?
Losing to Central Florida 45-3 is considered a good loss in your mind?
I never said that.
I would argue it's a great loss, T-Sol. I got your back, J-Sol. I'll answer
Why?
for you.
How is losing
Why
to
is there
Central
even a
Florida
playoff?
by
Why is there even a
42
playoff?
points good?
Alabama should be the national champion. They won the SEC. Is that not what you're saying? Alabama won the
Nobody said
SEC
that.
champion. So T-Cell's out here saying that nobody
I didn't
compares to
say
the
that.
SEC. Nobody compares to the
The
SEC.
Big Ten does,
and
clearly.
Biso, you said Georgia's the best team, and Alabama beat Georgia. They're the only
Yeah.
ones to beat Georgia. So therefore, crown them. Crown them. They are the national champion.
So let
because
me
they
get this
won the
straight.
SEC.
So somebody got lucky. Somebody got lucky for the first time in what 33 games, 34 games, and finally knocked them off. And instead of giving a team who has a proven track record, who you know would match up and beat any of these teams, you kept them out of the playoff. That's embarrassing. That right there is why the College Football Playoff Committee should be embarrassed. It has nothing to do with Florida State getting left out. Florida State without Jordan Travis was a joke. Absolutely. They were
We
a
don't
joke.
know that they
I can
would have
tell you
won
right
because
now.
guess
I can
what?
tell you
If
right
they
now, they're
they
a
just
joke.
lost
If
to a team that was in it. How can you
doesn't
come
matter.
out here?
Doesn't
How can
matter.
you come out here
Georgia
and say that
would
they were
have
going to
made
win
it
it
in
all?
and
They
Georgia
just
would have won.
lost to them.
Georgia
They
would have
just
won so much
lost
they
to
would have
them.
kept winning.
They already lost. They lost to a team that was in it. That was an
So-
idiotic take. Idiotic. I mean, I don't even know where you come up with this stuff. I mean, what are
I'm
you
telling you
smoking?
right now. What are you smoking?
No, what are you smoking?
How many games has everybody lost in the last 3 seasons? More than Georgia.
What
There
did
is not
do?
one
They
team.
lost
There
this
is
year.
not.
Did they
Okay,
lose?
last two
no?
seasons. Last 2 seasons. Hey, Jay, so how many games did every team lose in the last 2 seasons? There's only one team who has the same amount of losses as Georgia, and that's Michigan. And Michigan would have one more loss if they had to match up against Georgia this year.
Totally agree.
Georgia
Michigan
has the
wasn't
best
that good. I
program in
disagree.
college football right now, and it's not even close.
Michigan
it's
might be
embarrassing
the
that
worst
they got
national
left out.
champ we've ever
Why
seen.
Why did Alabama beat them?
You disagree with that?
So
Alabama,
no.
Alabama
So you
barely
are
beat
saying-
Auburn to make that
Okay,
championship game.
That was my argument. That was
So why are you
my
out? Why are you
argument.
out here? Alabama beat Georgia. They
Because
got
I'm
lucky.
saying that there
9 out
wasn't
of
a
10
top
times
dog
Georgia
like that.
wins.
There wasn't a top dog. If they could lose to Alabama, who should have lost to Auburn, who already lost to Texas, who lost to Oklahoma at home, I mean, open your eyes. There's not a top dog that was running away with it. Georgia last year, Georgia the year before, I'll give you nobody compared to that. But guess what? This is college football. You have
You are
4 years
talking-
in college. You have
you are
4
talking-
years. This isn't the NFL. It doesn't matter what you did 4 years ago. It doesn't matter what you did 10 years ago. I don't care how many vets you have there, because guess what? You have 4 years to play college football. I don't care. They took Alabama because what they did 10 years ago with Nick Saban, not because what they did this year. Guess what? If they took what they did this year, Alabama should not have been in. That is my take.
I'm telling you that Georgia was the best team in college football and they got left out. I'm remaining calm here. You're the one who doesn't have an argument, which is why you're getting so scared and fed up. It's not like if Alabama...
Northwestern is the best team in college football because they
if
had
Alabama,
one win last year, and it was overseas, none in the Big Ten, or none in, the United States, and they had one win last year, and they come over this year, and they go to a bowl game. That is the best turnaround I have ever seen. That is the best team in college football. Northwestern is my national champ.
You do know it shows that you have zero argument when you just talk over somebody who's spitting facts. Because I'm telling you right now,
a single fact.
Yes, Alabama beat Georgia at the end of the game. Georgia didn't get blown out. Georgia was in the game. Georgia should have won that game. Georgia should have been in the playoff. Georgia should have won the national championship and three-peated. And they would have if the committee didn't screw them by putting in an undeserving Texas team.
Texas beat Alabama.
But I'm telling you, if the committee did not rank Texas above Alabama for the 3 weeks before championship week, you would have had Alabama and you would have had Georgia in the championship or in the college football playoff, and Georgia would have won it all.
So wins
mean
nothing.
They
in your book.
No,
Here's the cherry on top for Bezos' argument right here.
No,
if he listens to me, I can close the door on Bezos.
Florida State didn't lose.
If
they lost Jordan Travis, that's a pretty
I'll
bad
slam
loss.
the door on Bezos' face. He's
Oh
talking
my
about
God.
wins mean everything, but yet he's saying TCU deserved to be in the playoff. If you recall, if we flipped the page back a year ago, TCU lost to Kansas State in their championship game, but that did not keep them out
How
of the
many
playoff.
undefeateds were there? How many undefeateds were there that got
But it
left out?
kept
How many
Georgia
undefeated
out of the playoff.
How many undefeateds?
Doesn't matter. You lost. You
How
lost.
many-
You're gone. You're done.
Okay,
See ya.
how many
Adios.
undefeateds?
Bye-bye.
How many undefeateds were sitting there on the outside waiting to get in? How many undefeateds? None, because this is the first time in the history of the college football playoff that an undefeated Power 5, get it through your head, T-Sol, Power 5 champion didn't get in the playoff. The first time in history. And that is a good thing that they're going away from the 4-team playoff because ESPN ran the college football 4-team playoff.
No, what you don't understand and what everybody fails to grasp is that the committee doesn't just look at wins. They look at losses. It's all about your resume and your strength of schedule. And so when you look at it, in grade worst loss, that's how it should have been handled. Because I can tell you right now, Georgia's one loss was Alabama. That's not a bad loss. That's a good loss. They should be in. Alabama lost to Texas. Okay, that's not bad. Texas is a top 5 team there at the end of the season. Texas lost to Oklahoma, a top 20 team. So that would be the worst loss out of those 3, correct? Based on rankings, that would be the worst loss. Then you go down the list. Michigan didn't lose. Florida State didn't lose. Oh, wait. Florida State lost a Heisman potential quarterback, Jordan Travis, who would arguably mean that is the worst loss of the season. You lost your best player when it mattered most. And so that right there is worse than a loss to Oklahoma.
Did they or did they not win the rest of their games without him?
Barely. And they didn't. Who did they play?
Your argument before was that Alabama barely beat Georgia.
Who did they play?
This is an outrageous take. Did they or did they not win? You're going to grade losses. Florida State didn't lose.
They lost Jordan Travis, which is
so
the
any team that has ever lost a quarterback should just quit the season. Year's over. Year's done. You lost your quarterback. Year's done.
If Jordan Travis had gone down 6 games into the season and Florida State continued to win, you would have been able to prove that he was not the best player on your team.
No, you literally could. They continued to win. Their offense wasn't the reason they were winning those games at the end of the year. It was the defense.
They continued to win. T-Sol, how many games did Jordan Travis miss? Just because I forgot here. How many games did he miss that they went on a tear here? They blew everybody out. They kept winning games, and it wasn't even close. Nobody questioned them at all because it's Florida State.
No,
and Jordan
they
Travis
questioned
didn't
him.
mean all that
They
much.
questioned him before Jordan Travis got hurt. You can go watch the tape on every analyst talking. They were questioning him before because why? Because a one-loss Alabama was knocking on the door, and guess what? Alabama was going to match up against Georgia, and they weren't going to leave out an SEC. It didn't matter if Florida State had Jordan Travis. That was just a scapegoat. Because you couldn't put in. Listen, if Jordan Travis was still healthy, now this is a hypothetical, they would have still left out Florida State. Why? Because they couldn't have put in Alabama over Texas.
They would have put Alabama in over Texas because Alabama would have beaten the #1 team in the country at that point. And that right there would have leapfrogged you over Texas. And it should have been the way they ranked it.
Getting whooped at home means nothing. So therefore, the regular season, the beginning of the season means nothing. Wins mean nothing.
You're one to talk about that.
Losses mean nothing.
Let me ask you this, Jason. Is losing to South Alabama at home 33-7 considered a good loss? You're talking about getting whooped on at home. Is that a good loss?
I'm not even bringing this up. I didn't bring up a team that was even.
You're talking about your Cowboys of Oklahoma State.
I never even brought them up.
Texas
had to be in the playoff because they beat Alabama.
Throw that win out. It didn't matter. That should have boosted
Wins
Texas
don't
up.
matter. Wins don't matter. That's what
it
you're
should
saying.
have boosted Texas up. Beating Oklahoma State, everyone was, even South
They
Alabama
beat
was getting in on that.
Alabama. They beat
South
Alabama.
Alabama. And that South Alabama beat them.
Texas beat Alabama. Are you an idiot? Did you watch college football?
Okay, Jason, who's the better team? Alabama or Oklahoma?
South
Alabama
or Alabama?
No, I'm asking a serious question. Better football team.
So
Oklahoma or Alabama?
According to Jason.
You're being sarcastic.
Oklahoma, based on what happened, Oklahoma.
I can't even deal with you right now.
Did Oklahoma beat Texas on the road? On the road. Did they beat Texas?
At a neutral site, yes.
Okay. Did
they
Texas
lose
beat Alabama
to Oklahoma
on the road?
State, who therefore lost to South Alabama? Therefore, you're saying that South Alabama is a better loss than Alabama.
Did Alabama lose to Texas at home?
So by this
my argument is that Texas.
That you're talking.
My argument is that here you go. You're trying to talk over me. I was talking first, and here you are trying to talk over me because you know I got you. I got you. Alabama lost at home by 14 points to Texas. So therefore, Texas.
They lost by 10.
This is my argument.
I don't know where this my argument came from.
This is my
argument.
Lost
by 10. Get it right. Learn your score.
Are we counting losses or are we counting wins? It doesn't really matter in your book because you're telling me that Texas win doesn't mean anything. That is why Texas was ranked over Alabama, because wins matter. Except the committee decided to pick and choose which wins matter. That is the problem here, is because we are playing figure skating. We are no longer playing football. It doesn't matter if you go out and you win or if you go out and lose. All that matters is how cute you look out there. If your jerseys are tucked in all beautiful, and if you're out there and you're throwing passes, and you can catch the ball, and you can run, and if you look just so good out there, and if you can just look good and just cheer SEC, you can get in the playoff. That's all it tells me.
Okay, so just hear me out. I've got just another simple question for you here. Better football team. Better football team. Texas, who made the college football playoff, or Arizona?
Texas.
Oh, hold on. Because I thought Oklahoma was a better team than Texas because they beat them head to head. But Arizona beat Oklahoma head to head. which would then mean Arizona is better than Texas, which would mean Arizona is better than Alabama, which would mean Arizona should have been in the college
Who else
football
did
playoff.
Arizona lose to? Who else did Arizona lose to?
Oh, T-Sol. So Arizona should have been in the top 4, correct? By his logic?
No,
We're
Just
Georgia
look
should
at
have been.
South Alabama.
No,
Jay
they
Salt,
shouldn't
like
have.
you said,
All right,
Texas
was
lost to
Arizona
Oklahoma.
was
Oklahoma
Arizona
lost to Oklahoma State.
was
Oklahoma State
Arizona
lost to South Alabama.
did Arizona
South Alabama
play,
should have been in the playoff.
did
They
Arizona
beat
play in
Alabama
their championship
technically.
game? Did Arizona play in their championship game? Did
No.
Oklahoma play in their championship game?
No.
No.
Did Texas play in their championship game?
Yes.
Did Texas win their championship game?
Yes.
Did Florida State play in their championship game?
Yes.
Did Florida State win their championship game?
Yes.
Did Florida State
I don't know where you're going with
lose?
this.
Did Florida State lose during the season?
They lost Jordan Travis,
No.
which was a bigger
Did
loss.
Did they play Ohio State during
I'm
the
not
season?
even gonna
I
argue.
don't recall that.
Just get your point
Well-
across. It doesn't even matter. This is
Did they play
idiotic.
Georgia? Did they play Ohio
you
State?
have said when you compare the teams, Jay. So I'm going with your logic. You said if Team A beats Team B and Team C beats Team B, Team C is better than Team A. So by that logic, Arizona is better than Texas and should have been in the championship or should have been in the college football playoffs. Just based on your logic there, I'm turning it around for you here. So an Arizona team that finished the season with 3 losses should have been in the Final Four here because they beat Oklahoma, who beat Texas, who beat Alabama. So I mean, right there, that's another team right there that's up there at the Florida State caliber right there. And you know, I don't understand how your logic makes any sense when you start doing that because wins matter at a certain point, but worse losses are what matter.
Gotcha. Wins don't matter.
Well,
Correct.
let's
You
talk
can
about
go
something else here.
undefeated and it doesn't matter.
Let's talk about who really screwed up, and that's the USC Trojans. Because looking at their 2024 schedule, USC is not making a bowl game. Have you guys even checked out their schedule? They're not making a bowl game. They're going to be an embarrassment this year. They decided their non-conference game, they're going to play LSU and Notre Dame. That's 2 L's based on the USC team we saw. Then they got Washington at Washington.
Like
That's an
Biso
L.
was just saying,
Penn
it doesn't
State,
matter. It
that's
doesn't
an L.
matter. It doesn't matter
Michigan,
what
that's
you
an
do
L.
throughout the year. Biso just explained
Minnesota's
that it doesn't
probably
matter
a loss.
what you do
Nebraska's
during the year.
definitely a loss. They might beat UCLA. We're looking at a 4-win team in USC next year. 4-win team. Put it on your books. Hammer the under.
You have 4 wins on the USC team.
Look at their schedule next year.
I mean, USC
I'll give them a
hurting for
Maryland win.
quarterback.
I'll give them a Rutgers win. I'll give them a Utah State win.
You're
Am I at
forgetting that
3?
you're forgetting the college football playoff though. They're going to win it all because wins and losses don't matter.
Well, they ain't getting in. I can promise you that.
Why not? Why not? Anyone can make it.
Not those guys. They're going to get beat up.
JSL's still just struggling here to come to reality grips that if you lose a player in the season, it's just as damning as a loss on the record.
Even if you continue to win. So therefore, winning means nothing.
The goal is to be in the conversation at the end. And if you give the committee a reason to keep you out, they're going to keep you out.
Apparently, UCLA is also playing LSU on a non-conference game.
If Jordan
those
Travis,
two-
if
are
Jordan
those two
Travis was
idiots?
so good and so, was the reason they didn't make it or would have been the reason they did make it, why was he not at the Heisman, ceremony?
I think that's a joke. I think the way the committee voted there, I think Jordan Travis should have been the Heisman winner.
Why? You don't do that for the NFL MVP. If a guy gets injured with 3 games left, sucks for him.
I'm
Well,
telling
but
you right now.
their team could still go to the playoff, can they not?
Yeah, T-Cell, that team went undefeated, and because he got hurt, he was the reason that they got left out.
No, they would have got
made him
left
the
out even if
Heisman.
he didn't get injured.
Thank you
They
for
would
pointing
have
that
got
out,
left
because
out regardless.
that is the point I have trying to be getting across here. It didn't matter that Jordan Travis was hurt. It didn't matter about anything. They
No,
would
it
have
didn't.
left them out regardless. That was
George
an
Travis could have
excuse.
played. He could
It
have
was-
played in that
it was
Georgia
a
game. They still would
scapegoat.
have lost by 50 points.
That's where I draw the line. But he was a scapegoat
How do
for
you
the
draw
committee.
the line there?
Well, that's because Georgia was the best team in college football, and so I agree with T-Cell on that. I don't know that it would have been 50 points, but it would have been lopsided.
Hold
So
on a
they
second
would've
there,
lost by-
B-Sol.
they would've
I
lost by
argued that
70.
Georgia should have been in the playoff, and you didn't back me a month ago. You didn't back me when I said it's an absolute joke that Texas is in the playoffs and not Georgia. And you
So-
said
Alabama would have beaten Florida State by 70.
All I told you is that because the committee ranked Alabama ahead or Texas ahead of Alabama all year, they weren't going to do that. I told you Georgia should have been in. Georgia's a top 4 team. Georgia's the best team in college football, and this Michigan team would have gotten embarrassed on national TV if Georgia was in the playoff.
What should have happened is they should have left Texas and Alabama out of the playoff.
not Alabama out of the playoff. You wouldn't do that. That's stupid. Then there's an asterisk next to the season. If you won it all, did you really?
Yes, if you
You
beat
know?
Georgia, you did.
I'd be a
And
committee
B
member
cells-
just voting Alabama national champs because you didn't beat them on the field. Beat them on the field.
But you're
Michigan
telling me
did.
that Georgia deserved
Michigan
to be
did.
in. You're
But
telling me
if
that
they didn't
Georgia
play-
deserved to be in. You're telling me Georgia deserved to be in.
They sure did. They sure did.
But they lost to Alabama, so how could you crown them national champs? They lost
I would
on
have
the
put them
field.
both in.
They
I would've
lost
put them
on the
both in the
field.
playoff.
They lost on the field. That was your argument right there.
They did lose on the field.
Guess who didn't get to play them on the field?
Who?
Florida
Michigan.
State did not get to play them.
Florida State got their butts smacked around by Georgia.
Again,
If they would have beat Georgia, they might have
With
got a
all-
couple first place
with-
votes.
with all freshmen.
They might have. They might have got a couple first place votes.
They
I
would
am
have
already-
been
I would still
self-proclaimed
crown 'em.
national champs.
They could still claim national champs. The team that
No, they
played
can't. They
in that bowl
lost.
game, the team that played in that bowl game, is not
They
the team that played
lost.
throughout the year. They could still claim
What's
national
it
champs.
What's it like to go out on a loss and consider yourself a national champ?
Well,
That
we'll
doesn't
find
sound
out
like a
because
national champ.
Their national champs to me, it's a split national champ this year. You got a cheating Michigan, and you got an undefeated Florida State that did not get to go up
Did-
and claim their
Did
trophy.
somebody finish 14-0 T? I know Michigan finished 15-0. I don't see a 14-0 team on the rankings here.
They
Well, I
finished
gotta tell you
13-0.
guys,
They finished
Michigan-
13-0.
Michigan, who just won the national championship, is probably the worst national championship team we've ever seen. I think if you matched them up against any team from the last 30 years, they'd lose in every game against the national champ from that season.
I would disagree with that.
Okay, who would they beat?
Every single one of them, they have their plays.
That might be true there, J Soul, but even stealing playbooks from those other teams they saw wouldn't have helped them in those games. They stole TCU's plays and they still got beat by those guys who got
That's
smacked
where I
around by Georgia.
that's where I disagree with you. They didn't even think TCU was going to be there, so why would they send Connor Stallions to watch them?
They definitely did. They scouted
So-
everybody.
T, so
They
you
did
said
not
in the
go to
last
scout TCU.
you said they wouldn't beat any team in the last 30 years, right?
Any national champ. Yep. That means in
It's-
97, they got to beat both Nebraska and Michigan, and they'd lose both of those games.
Well, I just think it's hilarious how the college football, president of the NCAA comes out and says that they did not cheat the last month of the season, so it's a legitimate win. So everything before the last month of the season no longer matters. You can do whatever you want as long as you stop cheating a month before the season ends.
I think they probably would have beaten that LSU team from 2007.
That
They
was Nick
probably would've-
Saban's team. So, no, they would have got
No,
out coached for sure.
I'm sorry, that was a Les Miles team, T-Sol. I think they would have had a very good shot at beating a Vince Young Texas team.
No chance they would have beat that team. There was no stopping Vince Young.
I think they very well could have beaten. They probably could have beaten the 96. No, maybe not.
No, I'm telling you, they lose all those games.
Maybe the 2000 Oklahoma team.
Doubt it. Highly doubt it. Oklahoma could run the ball better than how Michigan did.
But Michigan's defense was built to stop the run.
Yeah, I mean,
Were
they
they,
had their
though?
other team's place. I mean, it's
Yeah,
easy to
they
stop
had the other
what
team's plays.
it's easy to stop what you know is coming.
The only other team that they might have been able to beat might have been Cam Newton's Auburn team, just because
No.
all you had to do was force Cam to throw the ball, and nobody could do that. But this defense might have been able to force him to sit back and
No.
throw the ball.
Cam Newton would have trucked everybody on this Michigan defense. There's not one person on this Michigan defense where I'm like, holy crap, this is an NFL Hall of Fame type talent. They don't have
No, but
that.
it's guys who have been there for a while. That's the only reason that I've thrown out a couple teams here. I don't know that they're the worst college football champ that we've ever seen, but they're
think they
definitely
are.
not the top.
No, they're not. Not even close. Not even close to the top.
Not when you cheat.
You probably have to go back to like the 50s or 60s to like when they can finally find a team that they could beat without like a doubt in your mind. Like, oh, well, we met him on a bad day, so we beat him that day. Like, Jim Harbaugh is not that great of a coach. He doesn't do anything spectacular. They get lucky. I mean, that trick play they ran against Alabama was just dumb luck. I mean, it should have really cost him with the turnover. You're talking a guy who fumbled the punt at the 5-yard line. Like, why is this guy jogging out here trying to catch the ball with 30 seconds left in the game? At the 5-yard line, fumbles it. That very easily could have. I mean, Alabama should have won that game. I mean, they really just handed it to Michigan, and Michigan tried handing it right back to them. And that tells you right there that those two teams don't even come close to the previous champs that we would have seen. I mean, imagine this Michigan team against Joe Burrow's LSU team. It would have been embarrassing. It would have been embarrassing tuning into that game. You disagree?
No.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Imagine them going against Georgia for the last 2 years.
If they went against Georgia this year, they would have lost too. So
that tells you right there. And this Georgia team doesn't even match their last 2 years. So that tells you all you need to know right now. You know? Diesel's still diving through past champs, and he can't find one that he's comfortable saying Michigan can beat.
I gave you 3 that I think they would beat.
Well, I'm telling you, they wouldn't have beat Cam Newton. That guy was just too much of a difference maker. They definitely wouldn't have beat Vince Young. I mean, Vince Young took out that juggernaut USC that nobody could touch for 3 years. So nobody was beating you. I mean, that's like beating Georgia. Really, that's like beating Georgia last year. That's what Vince Young and Texas did. I'm not taking that away from them. Michigan wouldn't have been able to stop that. They wouldn't have touched any of the Miami Hurricane teams. They wouldn't have touched the 90s Nebraska teams. Don't even get in that debate. I would say every matchup against Nick Saban, they would have lost.
They just beat Nick Saban.
And this was probably one of Nick Saban's worst teams. And he still got them into the playoff. That tells you how good of a coach he is. Mark Ingram would have ran all over that defense.
Yeah, I don't think it's the most talented team, like I said before, but I think this defense would have matched up well against any of those national championships from the last 30 years who were one-dimensional. Like I said, I think that was Cam Newton, and I think that Vince Young, and then, like I said, that 2000 Oklahoma team they probably could have beaten.
Yeah, I totally think they could have compared to pretty much any team when you have their playbooks. I mean, it's pretty easy to know how to stop what's coming when you know what's coming, or it's pretty easy to know what you're gonna run when you know what the defense is gonna run against you. And I don't think anyone disagrees with that. I mean, Jim Harbaugh pled guilty, took the suspension, and then comes out and says he never cheated. I mean, when I'm in court one day and I take the plea deal, just know I'm an innocent man. I just did the plea because it was just what I wanted to do, just like Jim Harbaugh. It's the Jim Harbaugh way, and I never did anything wrong when I take a plea deal. But thanks for joining us again for another week of the Sully Scoop. You're here with Jaso.
Be salt.
And T-Saw.
And don't forget to follow and like. And you can catch us on X at Sully_Scoop. You can catch us on TikTok. And you can catch us on Facebook. We have a fan page. It is at Sully Scoop, or you can just search Sully Scoop. You will see us, and we will pop up, and you just do a little click and a follow, and comment whatever you want to talk about, and we will talk about it on the podcast, and you will be able to get in contact with the Scoopers themselves.
Go Big Red.